Welcome to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Burkeen.
Hi, everyone. Glad for everybody to be listening today. I'm very proud to announce we've got a great guest today in Ben McDonald, the first pick of the 1989 MLB draft to the Baltimore Orioles from LSU. But it all started in Denham Springs, Louisiana. And later in the show, we're going to talk recruiting. I want to have a couple of sleepers to talk about. Hopefully, we'll have high school football. If not, we're still going to promote these young men and help them out. I know Ben's all about kids getting exposure. I know Ben. Thank you, Ben McDonald, for joining us from Baltimore. Thank you, man.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you, I'm glad to be with you. You caught me on a good day. We got an off day, and so I've just been kind of catching up on a few things, get some notes together for the upcoming series. The Orioles crank up with the Phillies tomorrow night, and so I've been kind of doing that, washing some clothes and kind of getting ready for another run at this thing. Because it's a short season this year, as you know, and it's going to happen. It's happening fast, actually, 60 games, 66 days, and so it's just wide open right now.
Ben, tell everybody, we got a big baseball audience and a lot of football guys, but you played football at Denham, and I told you the other day I was a young guy at Central High School, and I remember you were a kicker and pretty good kicker, and I remember you back then, and you played football. You were also a basketball player, and people forget that. I know you did well in baseball, but they forgot you played football and basketball at Denham Springs.
Yeah, I played all three of them, and I always encourage young kids and parents these days. There's too much specializing going on at the youth league level, but I was a football, basketball, baseball player growing up from the time I was 7 years old all the way through, and played all three sports in high school, and even went to LSU on a basketball scholarship and played basketball and baseball at LSU, and then eventually, baseball ended up winning out and end up chasing professional baseball dreams. But yeah, I love the game of football, and it was funny. It was one of my favorite sports growing up, and I was always a quarterback in the youth league levels, and when I got to high school, I was very tall, very skinny, and the baseball and the basketball coach would have nothing to do with me playing quarterback in football. So all they let me do is be a punter and a kicker, and I was always, I made All-State as a punter one year, All-State as a kicker the next, and I always enjoyed those punt, pass, and kick contests they used to have many, many years ago, and that was always fun for me to do, so that was right up my alley. Ben,
I had a chance to meet the late Beetle Bailey. Speaking of Denham Springs baseball, I know he meant a lot to you, and he left us way too young, and I know he meant a lot to Skip Burtman at LSU as a recruiter. What was Coach Beetle Bailey to you? I mean, he was obviously a big positive in your life at Denham Springs.
Yeah, I didn't get to know Coach Bailey till after I was out of high school, because he was one of those coaches that he was your coach, right? He wasn't your buddy, and I think that's the best kind of coaches to have. I mean, these coaches in high school that want to be friends, and I'm not saying you be ugly to players, but you can't be their friend and you can't be their coach. You got to be their leader, and he was our leader, and he was a guy that brought so much intensity to the game of football and to the game of baseball. He was my head baseball coach at Denham for 3 years, and eventually he went to LSU 1 year before I got there. Steve Long took over, and we lost 2 state championship games in a row under Beetle Bailey my sophomore year and junior year, and finally won the state championship under Coach Long my senior year. But Coach Bailey had put that team together, and him and Coach Long had, developed us over the years when there was no travel ball or any of that kind of stuff. And so we owe that state championship to Coach Bailey as much as anybody. But he was a wonderful man, a hell of a leader on the field, a no-nonsense kind of guy, an in-your-face kind of guy that, wasn't going to pat you on the rear end all the time. He's going to tear you down if he needed to, and he's going to get your face if he needed to. And, I appreciate it. You don't appreciate that kind of stuff when you're 15 years old and 16 years old, but looking back on it, man, I know for me and a lot of the other athletes that he coached that were on to play college ball, we're very thankful that we got to spend some time with Coach Bailey.
I want to throw out some Denham Spring greats in football and baseball. You're going to love this. Drew Nettles was a great baseball player and football player at Denham Springs, now a coach at Zachary High School, receivers coach. Glenn Glass, how about that name? Glenn Glass was a phenomenal running back.
Glenn Glass was the toughest football player I ever saw in my life. That's what I remember about Glenn Glass. 5'5", 165 pounds, and you couldn't kill him. Like, you just couldn't kill him. He was the toughest running back, toughest ball player I ever saw.
Tried to tackle Glenn Glass, Ben, and his legs were 100 pounds each, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't a big dude, but he ran so low to the ground. You wasn't the only person he ran around or ran over. I can promise that. He could go for a little guy.
Obviously, Ben McDonald. Tasman Mitchell had a long basketball career, current LSU assistant basketball coach. And here's a good name people forget about, Shannon Robique, a center that went to Auburn.
That's right. Center that went to Auburn. You know, we've had some good players come out. And you mentioned Tasman Mitchell. Heck, I went to high school with his mom and played basketball with his dad in high school as well. So I know Tasman really well. Had a hell of a college career, you know, and in the coaching side, as you mentioned, now over at LSU. So, yeah, it's always been some really good athletes. I mean, you remember Janet Garrison probably. She won 4 consecutive state championships in tennis during my time there, and I don't think that's ever been done since then at Denham Springs High School. So there was a lot of good athletes that went through Denham Springs in my time and still going through today.
I told you off the air, I have a connection to Denham. I didn't go to Denham Springs High School. I played against Denham. It was always a rival. I went to Central High School. You know all about Central.
Oh, yeah.
And my uncle, you know that we talk all the time. My uncle is a huge LSU fan, Ben McDonald, and he would be proud that I would mention this because he listens to this kind of stuff. He's retired. He's an old retired electrician, and his name is Leo Kinchin. I tell you, 1961 was the most valuable player at Denham Springs High School in football and was a teammate of your old head coach, Butch Wax.
And that's another name for the past, too, Butch Wax. You know, of course, he was our head football coach when I was there. And same kind of, you know, we had so many just tough guys, you know, Butch Wax and Beetle Bailey and Lloyd DeGeneres and Coach Tessay, and it was a good bunch of guys that really taught us not only about football, but taught us about life, too. And again, when you're young, you don't think about those kinds of things, but it's not until you get a little bit older and you start thinking, well, that's what Coach Bailey was talking about. You know, that's what Beetle, you know what I mean? And so it was really cool. We were very fortunate with a wonderful, wonderful coaching staff.
Ben, I remember talking to Coach Beetle Bailey, it must be 20 years ago, and he was speaking to an audience of about 100 people, and he had a gift of gab. He could talk. And you know that. He came across, he was strong in what he said. He told it like it was, like you said. And he was so angry because he said we were recruiting, and he said the weekend before there was a couple of fans in front of the parents that threw bottles. And, boy, it just bothered him. He said, Coach, he said, I want to tell every fan in the room. He said, never do that at a game. He said, I watch everything. Everybody sees everything. He said he was so particular to everything perfect. And he said, you know, we just don't do that at LSU. And he said, you know, that's something we pride ourselves on. But it was like a Saban reaction. You know, the little thing bothered him besides getting the recruits. And actually, the kids committed to LSU.
Yeah, well, you know, and Coach Bailey, one more thing. I mean, attention to detail, like you're talking about. I mean, that was fundamentally sound. You know, we learned things in baseball and football from a fundamental standpoint. And that's what they drilled into us back then was learn how to play the game the right way. You know, you learn to cover first base if you're a pitcher. You learn bunt plays, pickoffs, cutoffs, all those kind of things. And it paid off for us, like I said. I mean, before they were separating private schools from public schools in the playoffs, you know, we played for 3 consecutive state championships at Denham Springs High School back in my time. And then we were a talented bunch, but there were other talented bunches out there. But I really think our attention to detail and doing the little things right, and that's what Coach Bailey always tried to instill in us. You do the little things right, you got a chance at the end of the day, and we always had a chance.
Ben, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to ask you about Skip Burtman and the LSU Tigers and the MLB and your former days in the MLB with the Orioles and your time in Milwaukee. I know you played a couple of years in Milwaukee, 9 years overall. And we'll be right back. You're listening to Sports Scouting Report with Lee Burkeen. We have Ben McDonald. We'll be right back.
Hello, Sports Scouting Report fans. Like what you hear? Well, you're going to love our content at LAFootballMagazine.com. This week, check out Recruit Spotlight on Landry Walker quarterback Justin Hudson, who has committed to the Tennessee State Tigers this past week. Also, make sure to check out our podcast and pre-order your North or South Magazine edition for this upcoming season. All that and more on LAFootballMagazine.com.
Welcome back. I hope you're enjoying the show. I'm honored to have Ben McDonald on. I want to mention this to Ben. When I was in high school, I played baseball. Actually, I regret it because I threw 89, 90 for a tryout, Ben, one time. And I chose track over baseball. I ran about 11 flat 100, 10-9, and I was like, I love baseball, but you can't go back. Like you said, when you're kids, you can't go back. I played football, but I will always say that what if I would have stuck to baseball, because I loved baseball growing up, but I didn't follow it that much college-wise. And when Skip Bertman was hired at LSU, my dad took me my first game, and guess who was pitching?
Who's that?
Ben McDonald.
Is that right?
Yeah, so my first college baseball game, you were the pitcher, and I knew I knew you were from Denham Springs, and I was from Central. And I said, Dad, man, this is great. And y'all ended up winning, and it was a conference game, and I don't know if it was Auburn, and I don't know, it was Frank Thomas was kind of almost the same time, huh, Ben, or a little bit after?
Yeah, Frank was the exact same time as me. Yeah. So I pitched and played against Frank for 3 years in college. Yep.
And I watched Frank. He got one of them out, but man, that guy was a grown man, 6'5", 250, but you struck him out. He got you, you got him, and y'all won the game, and I was hooked. And so from the rest of your playing time, which is I think your sophomore year, I didn't miss a game all the way through Todd Walker. And speaking of Denham, Russ Johnson.
That's right. Russ Johnson, another guy played in the big leagues.
And so I bet you I went to 100 baseball games for about 4 years at LSU.
Well, that's great. You and a bunch of other people, man, because that's by the time they started to really get popular.
Get rolling. And so I wanted you to tell people, back then, because you were a part of it, you're graduating from Denham. And you don't go pro back then. It wasn't as popular, I guess, to sign, or maybe today you maybe never go to LSU in today's world throwing like you were throwing out of high school. But to go to LSU out of high school, there was no national championships yet. And Skip Bertman's the head coach. What was that like going back in time, being recruited? And this is before, like you said, everything started.
Yeah, my recruiting process, I kind of had narrowed it down to University of Texas and Mississippi State and LSU. Now, if you go back, Ron Polk at Mississippi State had the #1 program in the SEC when I was in high school. They had Will Clark, Rafael Palomero, Jeff Brantley, Bobby Thigpen, not just 4 big leaguers, but 4 big league all-stars. Right. Will Clark and Palomero are arguably Hall of Famers with the numbers that they have put up. So they had the program in baseball in the SEC. Skip Bertman had just gotten to LSU. But my senior year in high school, Skip Bertman's 3rd year at LSU, they go to the College World Series. And I say, you know what? I know the basketball program's good because I'm going on basketball. I'm going to play basketball. And I knew LSU's basketball program was really solid with Dale Brown at the time. And I didn't know about the baseball program yet. I didn't know who this Skip Bertman guy was and how good he was going to be. But only in his 3rd year, he took a program that was basically non-existent and turned it into a World Series caliber team back in 1956. I said, okay, now I know this baseball program has an opportunity to be really good and play at the highest level. Because when you come out of high school, that's what you want to do. You want to have a chance to play in the College World Series if you're a baseball player. And I felt like we had a real shot. And Coach Bertman had turned the program around, and we ended up going 2 of my 3 years. We go to the College World Series. And so it was at the end of the day, I really wasn't going to get away. When you grow up like you probably did and I did, I grew up going to LSU football, LSU basketball games. I remember sneaking in the old box when I was a kid. My parents would drop me off with a couple of buddies, and we'd climb through a hole in the fence out in left field, and we'd sneak around and watch baseball games, And so I really wasn't going to leave, but I thought about Mississippi State really hard just because I loved Coach Polk, and I knew they had a good program. But, Coach Bertman, just came in and he made a difference right away. And everything Coach Bertman touched in his career, not only as a coach at LSU, but go back and look what he did as an athletic director. You can argue that as an athletic director, we had the best run ever in sports with him being the AD. And you go back to 5 national titles in baseball. And so, you could make a point about Skip Bertman, and it's been said before, that he's the most influential person ever to step foot on an LSU campus from a sports standpoint for what he did, both on the field and off the field as an AD, And so we're very fortunate. How many guys get to play for Dale Brown and Skip Bertman? 2 of the best ever to do it. And so that was a lucky time that I came along and got to play for those guys.
I can only think of one other guy, Lyle Mouton, right? Maybe Lyle?
Yep. Lyle was 1 year behind me. He played basketball and baseball too. And, was a hell of a basketball player and a really good baseball player who made it to the big leagues. I think it was the White Sox for a while. And so Lyle was just 1 year behind me, so I got to play a couple years with Lyle.
I was reflecting, Ben, about those that time when you were at LSU, and a lot of the youngsters listening today, you know, they talk about all this talent, you know, that come out, that goes to the MLB from college, and they, you know, we always use the cliche, it's better every year. But I remember during the time when you were at LSU, you were talking about Will Clark, Palmeiro, Brantley, Thigpen, but you had Frank Thomas, you had Bo Jackson, you had Robin Ventura at Oklahoma State, you had, you know, at Texas, you had our pitcher at Texas at Roger Clemens. I mean, that was an incredible group of guys at one time. I mean, that's some of the best players ever, I think.
Yeah, no, look, it was, and you're right. I mean, not many of us. I mean, I was drafted by the Braves out of high school, 18 years old. Had told them before the draft that I was going to LSU. Don't draft me high because I'm not coming. And they ended up drafting me late. But back then, you could throw whatever money you wanted to throw at somebody, no matter what round they got drafted in. You got slot limits now, you know. And I mean, first round money back then was $100,000. If you got $100,000 back then, that was back in the first round, and they got up to like $80,000. I remember my dad looked at me and said, "Son, if they get to $100,000, you're going to play." And I'm like, "Dad, I don't want to play pro ball. I'm 18 years old. I'm not ready to be away from home for the first time. I want to go to LSU. I want to play basketball, and I want to play baseball." So thank gosh the Braves never got to that number, because it sure would have made me really nervous at that point, you know. But it all worked out, and like ended up being a number one pick 3 years later. Look, got to play in the Olympics, won a gold medal while I was there, got to play basketball and baseball, so it couldn't have worked out any better than what it did.
I want to take one more break, and when we come back, I want to promote your Baltimore Orioles. I know you're doing play-by-play TV for the organization, doing a great job, and you've done a great job even with your college broadcasting, Ben. I told you that with SEC Network. I thought you were one of the best announcers on that channel, but we're going to take a quick break and talk about the Orioles. And Ben was the only LSU player to this day, the first pick of the MLB draft in baseball. The only other player to come close was the second pick of the draft in 2015, Alex Bregman with the Astros. We'll be right back.
Parents, are you looking for advice on getting your high school athlete recruited by the right college? Lee Brakeen is your answer. Lee has been doing it for over 30 years. He knows the ropes, and more importantly, he knows the people. Lee offers turnkey service from evaluation, creating highlight tapes in the correct format, and complete guidelines for effective communication with the schools. No matter the sport, girl or boy, no matter what grade your child is in, let Lee Brakeen help match your child to the right college fit. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get connected today.
Welcome back. We've got Ben McDonald, former MLB star and LSU star, in Denham Springs High School, where it all started. And Ben, I want to talk about your days in 1989. You're the first pick of the MLB draft for the Baltimore Orioles. I grew up watching Baltimore. I was a big fan of Jim Palmer, who I see. I see Jim still with the organization to this day. Yep.
He's still doing, TV work, and I see Jim all the time. Now, they don't have him coming over this year because of safety reasons, and so that's the reason why I'm doing, pretty much all the games this year. And so they want to keep Jim safe, and he's back home in California. We have him on, during the game on FaceTime and Zoom during the game or whatever, But, Jim's a great guy, and I was different. When I was growing up, we didn't have cable vision until when I got in high school. So the only baseball games I ever got to see was Monday Night Baseball. Couldn't wait for that. And then we got WGN and we got WTBS. So I really grew up a National League guy. Following Dale Murphy with the Braves and the Chicago Cubs and Rick Sutcliffe and
Harry Carey.
And so that was the only games I ever got to see. So I was actually hoping to get drafted by a National League team because I knew some of the players and all the teams, and all of a sudden you get drafted by the Baltimore Orioles. And I didn't know anything about the Orioles at the time other than they had Cal Ripken Jr., everybody knew him, and they had Greg Olson, who played at Auburn a year in front of me, and so I played against him. But other than that, I didn't know any of the players, and I get called up right at when I signed August 19th, and I was in the big league September the 1st, like 11 days later. And so it was a learning experience for me for sure. Being in a man's world all of a sudden, if you will, at 21 years old. And so there was a lot of learning for me to do at that time. And thank guys for Cal Ripken Jr. and others who kind of took me under their wing and helped me out in a lot of different ways. end up having a solid career. Your career never goes the way you want it to, and mine got cut short because of injury, but that's just one of these things that, are out of our control at some point.
Well, you played 9 years, 7 with Baltimore, 2 with Milwaukee. You had, I looked at your career, you had 894 strikeouts. It looked like your best year was 94. You went 14-7 in 94 with the Orioles. You won, and you won 78 major league games. That's a lot of wins, Ben. 78
wins.
Yeah,
94, I was having a career year like everybody else, but that was the year we had the work stoppage, and so early August rolled around, and Major League Baseball never got started again. So I had a chance to win 20 that year. Mike Cassina was on the team then. He had 16 wins. I had 14 at the time, and we were rolling pretty good, but. Had a work stoppage, which happens occasionally, unfortunately, for everybody. It's one of those deals. And so we got that season cut short. But, it was a solid career. It's unfortunate because at 30 years old, I was out of the game. And at 30, really a pitcher starts to hit his stride from a mental standpoint. And but my arm finally broke down on me, and I had too many surgeries, 3 surgeries trying to come back, and nothing ever worked. And so I was out of the game at 30, and then sat around the house and got to know my family again and got into broadcasting. And Skip Burtman was the reason I got into broadcasting.
Okay.
With CST and Cox Sports Television, he saw me one day at a game. He said, Ben, you know how to talk baseball. I said, Coach, I didn't go to school to do that. I said, I have. But anyway, he got me in front of the camera with CST, and as they say, a lot of learning along the way, and the rest is history on that. So, I'm up here in Baltimore now. I'm going to be here for about 70 straight days. Doing ball games. Been here for about 3 weeks now, and the season's unusual. It's a different kind of season. There's no fans, as you know, and as a broadcaster and a player, you feed off the fans, and the atmosphere that's out there. So that's been a struggle, I think, for everybody this year. But look, at the end of the day, I'm just glad we are playing baseball again. I think the fans out there are craving live sports, and so I'm happy that baseball is back on the map again.
What do you think, Ben, of these cutouts of people in the stands, like the billboards and stuff?
Well, I think it's great. I mean, some organizations like the Red Sox, for instance, you pay $500 to get your face out there.
Wow.
It goes to charity. All the money does. And if a home run ball hits you, then you get like a weekend free tickets next year or something like that. So some organizations are having some fun with it. They're raising money for different charities, which is a wonderful thing. And, they're piping crowd noise in, as you know. They started doing that. And really, I talked to some of the players with the Orioles on Zoom call. They say it almost feels like there's a packed house sometimes. If you don't look into the stands and see all the empty seats, it almost feels like all the fans are really there. So Major League Baseball, is doing a wonderful job trying to do all those things. I think the COVID testing, they're getting tested every other day. The protocols are good. We've had a few outbreaks, as you know, with certain teams. Sounds like that's been mainly because some players broke protocol, and that was unfortunate. But Major League Baseball has done a good job with this thing along the way. And, the players, that's the whole thing, and it's college football, and I hope it happens. But, the athletes have to stay 100% committed to the cause here. If people are going to break protocol in Major League Baseball and they're going to go out to restaurants and go shopping and go out to the bars, nothing good is going to come out of that. And that's kind of, what you saw in some aspects with some of these teams. So it's going to be a commitment from everybody involved if we're going to have sports the rest of the year.
Hey, I've got a fan story for you, Ben, for an MLB story for you. So I didn't go to an MLB game until 2000. And me and my dad, who was my youth league coach growing up, he said, son, let's go to New York. And I want to see the Yankees, but I said, I want to see them play a team that has a lot of LSU Tigers on it. And now at the time, Baltimore Orioles had Albert Joey Bell and Jeff Rebele.
Yep.
And I said, man, I want to go to that game, Dad. So we got tickets, and we didn't get behind the catcher. You never get those, but unless you know somebody. So we didn't get bad seats. So we got some good seats. It was a day game, and Eddie Yarnell was the pitcher from LSU for the Yankees.
That's right. Yep.
And it was his first start, Ben, and I was so happy. And those Bronx fans are crazy. Like those Yankee fans, they reminded me of LSU fans.
Yeah.
And they were like, give me the scouting report on this guy, Lee. Give me the scouting report. And they said, from Louisiana. I said, he's from Florida. I said, he's a tall left-hander. It's his first start. I think he'll do well, And after the first inning, it was 9-0 Baltimore.
Oh, wow.
And I felt so bad for Eddie.
Well,
so
we all have outings.
Yeah,
we all have outings like that along the way, the Orioles had some good teams in those days too.
But what happened? The Yankee fans, they were trying to run me off. They're like, "Man, you told me he was good. You don't know what you're talking about." And it reminded me of Tiger fans in Tiger Stadium. And
yeah, well, they don't call it the zoo for nothing
right.
over there. It's a different place, Yankee Stadium. The old one was really a zoo. The new one is as well at times, and it's a special place, though. I always got a kick in playing in the old Yankee Stadium. So you sit there and you think about Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, DiMaggio, Yogi Berra, all the great ones that you're sharing a field with. As a kid, you don't really think about those things a lot. You're just in the big leagues. And you're trying to survive and trying to win ball games for the pitcher. But every now and then you go to a park and you go, like old Tiger Stadium, and Fenway Park and Yankee Stadium, you start thinking about the ball players that came before you and the great ones that are out there. It kind of makes the hair on your head stick straight up in the air at times, So that was a cool place.
And look, the end of the story is never leave the game early. The Orioles came back and won it 18-15.
Is that right? Good old pitchers duel, huh?
Oh, man. 12 home runs. I was so excited. I was there with my girlfriend and my dad, and I said, man, we didn't catch any foul balls, but I took in 12 homers. It wasn't a good, like you said, it wasn't a good pitcher day. But
right.
Albert hit a couple that day. Jeff had a couple of hits. Jeff Rebele, and as you know him, and from LSU. But I wanted to get into MLB, and my favorite player in the league, and I still think he could have been an NFL he could have been an all-pro linebacker, is Mike Trout, Anaheim.
Yeah.
What do you think? What makes this guy so special, Ben Trout?
Well, you always talk about five-tool players, and guys that can run and they can hit for power, he can throw, and he's outstanding on defense too. Well, he checks all those boxes, and he's just a guy that's different than most, right? He is extremely powerful, but also hits for a high average too. He can steal bases. There's nothing really he can't do on a baseball field, and that's really what makes him special and what separates him from most, And right now he's the best player in the game. And there's some young guys that are coming. This Acuna kid over in Atlanta. Keep an eye on him because he's going to be the next one.
Okay.
This Tatis Jr., who's a 21-year-old over in San Diego right now. These are the next two faces of baseball behind Mike Trout. But Christian Yelich, by the way, he's pretty good too over in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
MVP runner-up last year, MVP the year before. So those are probably some of the top players and most complete players in the game right now.
And I like Mookie Betts. I think he's a powerful guy for his size and does a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And I know the Red Sox lost him. That was a huge loss for Boston. But talking about some LSU guys in the major leagues, I know you got to be proud of. DJ LeMahieu, my other favorite player with the Yankees, DJ from LSU.
Yeah, LeMahieu, I just saw him the other day with the Yankees. He tested positive for COVID and didn't get to start the season on time with the Yankees, but he came back against the Orioles, unfortunately for the Orioles, about a week later when we played the Yankees. And, this guy just keeps on hitting. When I saw him at LSU and I covered him at LSU, I knew that he could hit a little bit, but at 6'4", I was wondering how well he could play the middle infield. I just thought he was really big, and he was a little bit clumsy at LSU. But, man, he has matured, and he's had a hell of a career, and he continues to hit. He's, I think, third in the league right now in batting average. He hit a home run against the Orioles and has had a wonderful career. Look, when you have a career batting average of over 300 at the big league level, and that's what Mayhew has in his time with the Rockies and the Yankees, you can hit, and this kid can flat out swing it.
And two other LSU Tigers are making, I call, late career full potential. Jacoby Jones in Detroit and Austin Nolan in Seattle. These guys are coming on late, Ben. They're doing a great job.
Yeah, Austin Nolan's a great story. Obviously he's Catholic high school in Baton Rouge, goes to LSU, is a shortstop, gets drafted late, not early, really struggles in the minor leagues. And finally, they get ready to release him about 7 years in, and they tell him, look, Austin, you don't hit good enough to play shortstop. We're going to put you at catcher. And he's like, I've never caught in my life before. Well, not only did he catch, he started over again, and he became an outstanding catcher, utility player, and he made it to the big leagues last year for the first time. So, yeah, a late bloomer, a switch of positions. has really done him well, and it's good to see. Cause I love to see the guys like him that fight through the minor league system, that go 8 or 9 years in the minor leagues. You don't even have a shot, and all of a sudden you surface later on, in your career. Alex Bregman continues to hit the baseball, just a elite type player. Bregman's one of the top 5 hitters in the American League, and year in year out, and early in his career. So he's been a lot of fun to watch. Will Harris is on the IL right now. He signed a 3-year contract, and he's on the IL. He left Houston, and so he's got a different place now. But he'll be back soon, from what I understand. So there's a lot of LSU players that are surfacing, and some are winding their careers down. Some are just getting started, But it's always fun to cover those guys at LSU and cover them when they're 20-year-old kids, and then see them make it through the big leagues. And it's fun for me to get to call their games again at the major league level.
Ben, you have a game with Philly coming up. Is Aaron Nola going to be the starter by chance?
Aaron Nola's pitching tonight,
okay.
And so we're going to miss him in the series. I got to see him pitch against the Orioles last year, but I always hope when I'm doing ball games for the Orioles, I run into some LSU guys on the other teams. And in a typical year, you get to go down and visit with them, before the game. But obviously now they're not allowed anybody on the field.
Right.
Can't talk to the players right now because of safety reasons. And so all the players that I am seeing from LSU, and even from the SEC that I covered over the years, can't really go down and visit with them.
One guy I want to ask you about that didn't hit the majors, but they said he's progressing really fast. 98 miles an hour right now, hitting his location, Zach Hess with Detroit.
Yeah, Zach, you never question the arm strength with Zach, and saw him at LSU. He had a really great arm. He just didn't command the fastball good enough to get to the big league level. And he was added to the Detroit, 30-man player pool, I guess about a month ago. And from what I understand, he's doing well. Now, that's games down there. It's all instructional type stuff. They're doing inter-squad games, this and that. But I understand his control has gotten better. But he is, in what you call the overflow or the player pool, in case somebody gets hurt or they do well enough down there, they get called up to the big league level. And you mentioned Jacoby Jones a while ago with Detroit. He is having a breakout year after, really having his struggles offensively. Defense has never been a problem. And I said this, and people laughed at me at the time, but when Jacoby Jones stepped on campus at LSU, I said, this kid is the best athlete I have ever seen in the LSU baseball uniform. And people said, you're crazy. And I said, I'm telling you, this kid can run, he can throw. The hitting's a little bit off, but when he does hit it, it goes a long way. Well, you see what he's doing now at the major league level with Detroit. It's taking him some at-bats, taking him some time, but he's always been an elite defender out in center field, and now the bat is starting to catch up with the defense.
And Ben, I've watched him. You obviously watch, and you do all the games with Baltimore, but I watched him in 3 games last year and then 3 this year. He goes over the top of the, where the he looks like a 40-inch vertical when he's going up for balls. He's taking homers away every game, it seems.
Oh, yeah. No. When I talk about athlete, I mean it. I mean, this kid, 6'3", 6'4", can run like a deer and has a cannon for an arm, And you got to remember, he didn't even play outfield in high school. Right. He didn't play outfield at LSU. He played second base, and that's where he played, was in the infield. But you could tell he had a heck of an arm. Matter of fact, Paul Maneri wanted to move him to the outfield, but then the outfielders were having the outfielders picked up their game, and they were having some struggles at second base. So we had to move him back into the infield because Paul Maneri thought he projected out like we all did, potentially a center fielder, and that's where he's playing right now.
Ben, brag about your Orioles. Talk about what's going on. I know there's a lot of young guys on this year's team. I know Davis is still with the team. He's a veteran. But what do you think of this young Orioles team so far?
Well, it's the 3rd youngest position player group in all of baseball. So, like you said, it's young. We got a Louisiana kid in that starting rotation, Wade LeBlanc from Sulphur High School. Went to Sulphur. Actually, Sulphur, Louisiana, went to Barbe High School. He went to the University of Alabama. He's one of the veteran starting pitchers on this team. But, everybody projected the Orioles to finish dead last in this, shortened season. They surprised the folks at this point. The Orioles are 7-7 right now, and it's a young position player group with Hanser Alberto and Rio Ruiz and Anthony Santander that are really carrying the load from an offensive standpoint. And the pitching, surprisingly, with a couple of veterans that they've added, including Wade LeBlanc, we just mentioned, and Tommy Malone, 2 left-handed veterans. It's surprising people from a pitching standpoint. And I hope it lasts. If the playoffs would start today, the Orioles would be in it. It's 500 right now and second in the AL East, but still a long way to go. But look, it's fun to watch, and it's a rebuilding going on. It's the second year of a total rebuild where you get rid of all your older players that you can move. You save money. You try to really recruit well or draft well, rather, and you sign some extra kids like they did in free agency this year out of college, the ones that didn't get drafted, and you try to build the program back up. And as you know, the AL East is probably the toughest division in all of baseball. Yeah. You got to go against the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Rays and the Blue Jays every day. It's a tough division, and so you can't. It's kind of like playing football in the SEC. You can't be kind of good and compete. Right. You got to be really good if you're going to win, and that's where the Orioles are trying to go. But realistically, the Orioles are probably another 2 years away from competing, with the Yankees and the Red Sox day in and day out.
The last question I had for you is, speaking of tough teams to play, they got to play the Giants, they got to play the Dodgers. What about the Oakland A's winning 9 in a row, Ben? Is this a real longevity deal, or is this just a couple of weeks on fire? I mean, it's crazy what Oakland's doing.
Yeah, well, the thing about 60 games, and look, we hit the quarter point, believe it or not, yesterday. I mean, 25% of the games are gone. And so with a truncated season of 60 games, look, you get out of the gates quickly is what you wanted to do. The A's have done that, and they're starting to run now. So it really only takes a good month or a good 5 weeks of baseball. You kind of play okay the rest of the way, and you're getting in the playoffs. But I'm not surprised. It's a lot of guys that you don't hear their names a whole lot, but I know the manager very well. Bob Melvin has been there for a while. He was my first big league catcher. He was on his way out of the game when I was coming in with the Orioles many years ago. But you could tell he knew the game of baseball, and when he became a manager at the big league level, I was not shocked at all because he just had that about him, and I knew he was going to do it, and he was going to do it well, and he has with Oakland so far. So it's good to see them out west, doing well. I was hoping Mike Trout, because, not many people get to see Mike Trout. You mentioned him earlier because he's out on the West Coast. Right. The games come on so late in the Central or Eastern time zone. But if he could get the playoffs, which I think Trout's only been in the playoffs one time in his career, it'd be great for the game of baseball if the Angels could make a move and get up there and get in the playoffs.
Well, Ben, I've been trying to go to bed before 10 o'clock, but I got to blame MLB on the West Coast. So I haven't been to bed before midnight, I think, in 3 weeks.
Look, that makes two of us, man. I tell you, these games are where the Orioles start 7:30 Eastern time zone every night at home, and so it's getting. My schedule is in bed at 1 or 2 o'clock every morning by the time everything unwinds and we get back. But it is what it is. I'm enjoying it, and it's a rush season, and it's a lot to it, but I'm enjoying seeing live baseball.
Yeah, I've only been to Baltimore one time. It was 2002. I went to the museum, took some pictures, and went to ate the crabs right there on the shore with the submarine. What do they call that place right there, Ben?
You can go by downtown to the Inner Harbor down there?
Yeah, Gaynor Harbor, where the submarine's in the water, and they've got that outdoor restaurant with the best crabs in Baltimore. And spent a couple of days there. The museum's nice, great facilities. And
but if you hadn't been to the ballpark, man, you need to come see it because it's it's not new anymore. We opened it up in '92, but it still has a wonderful feel to it. The warehouse is out in right center field, and Utah Street's out there, and it's set right down in the middle of the city. And it's a really cool place. And if you come 2 years from now, I can promise the Orioles are going to have a pretty good team.
I might take you up on that and call you in advance. Maybe do lunch or something down there, Ben.
That'd be great.
Look, it's good to have one of our own on from Louisiana calling you. Thank you for taking the time in Baltimore to be a part of this on your off day, Ben. Appreciate you doing this. I really do.
Yes, sir. Anytime. And keep doing what you're doing. Keep sticking up for them high school kids. And I hope they get to play, man. I feel for the high school kids out there, and I hope they have a season and they can get rolling.
I'm with you because today I know it's going to change like the weather and by the hour, but it's going to be an interesting 2 weeks for college football because now the kids are starting to talk about wanting to play and the coaches. You didn't hear that up until this week, so we'll see how that works with the kids wanting to play and be a part of that this year. And hopefully the high schools will be, like you said, also coming up. But Ben, thank you. Look, good luck. I hope y'all go on a winning streak of about 12 in a row, man. So
that'd be great, man. It'd be the best story in baseball if the Orioles can figure out a way to get in the playoffs. We'll see.
All right, Ben. Thank you. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
All right, Lee. Take care of yourself.
All right. Ben McDonald, former MLB, great. 1989, the first pick in the draft. one of the greatest players to ever come out of LSU, one of the best baseball players to ever play for Skip Bertman, 6'7", 215 pounds, threw 98, 99 in college, over 100 in the MLB. Took the time out today on his off day to be on the show in Baltimore. Be sure to support the Baltimore Orioles with LSU's former pitcher Ben McDonald does play-by-play for their TV crew up in Baltimore, Maryland. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to have actually, we're going to go ahead and end the show because we went at almost 40 minutes for the show today. And be sure to go on our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get your North or South preview football issue. We're still doing our issue because these kids deserve it. It has a compiled list of all 312 high schools, all 12 colleges. We have some great stories in the magazine. So if you're a mom or dad listening, we send it to every head coach in the state. But it's definitely a magazine you don't want to miss out on. It's going to be 140 pages. It's a bigger issue than last year. It's the biggest issue we've ever done. And for the South and the North part of Louisiana, will be out in early September. If everything continues the way we think it will, there won't be any, any shutdowns, right? So, but it should be out early September. You can go to lafootballmagazine.com. Hope you enjoyed the show today with Ben McDonald. I'm Lee Burkeen. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Burkeen.